don't think Bourbon should have been opened publicly. I don't. I don't think Bourbon Street should have been opened not even 24 hours after an attack. It was an active crime scene. That's an active crime scene. A person ran down people in a crowd, 14 of them, injured more than 30, 35 plus, I don't know. And that's just people directly injured by the impact. I don't know why the barricades weren't up to protect people from driving down those streets. They're always up. They're up on random Sundays. This is something that's known. This is something that you put up barricades in advance of events. It's not only is it New Year's Eve, the next day is the Sugar Bowl, is a massive college football championship at the Superdome in New Orleans. The Superdome has its own devastating history, okay? And as soon as things were rebuilt from Katrina, as soon as the tourist areas were rebuilt in New Orleans after Katrina, they stopped caring. You don't bring us money, the tourists bring us money. It's not, you're the help. You're disposable. We don't want the culture that you've created. We want what we can commodify of it and strip you of and sell, because clearly that wasn't enough for our Cajun and Creole ancestors, our indigenous ancestors. Clearly wasn't enough. But ahead of such a massive college sporting event that you know you're gonna have huge attendance of, and then ahead of the Super Bowl, and then Mardi Gras, boom, boom, boom. These are mega events that a tourist city is hosting. And we can't be bothered to put up barricades. Kirkpatrick with the police in New Orleans, this past August, she ran over 2 pedestrians, got reassigned, and now is in charge of whatever's going on in New Orleans. They asked her directly, why were these barricades not up? I wasn't aware we had them. You suck. You're bad at your job. These are things that have always, there are practices put in place for safety that none of you care about, because if you can exploit us to make more money, the blood wasn't even cleaned up off the streets yet. People died, not even 24 hours. And they were like, guys, it's just locals that died. Please feel safe to come down, tourists. I don't want any human being to die or be harmed, but what do you mean it's just the locals? Just the servants died. Come on, guys. They're not, don't worry. Look, there's a parade, there's a party. New Orleans is back. If we don't go back to work, we have to eat, we have to pay our bills. And all these fucking Airbnbs that are bought up by transplants and what have you, bought up while the property was underwater after a storm, whether it was after Katrina or Ida or what have you, developing Airbnbs and bullshit, taking business away from like institutional family-owned historic hotels, restaurants, things like that. It's so cheap and so tacky, and it's, to me, it's just disgraceful. New Orleans is so beautiful, and because it is a city that is a historically Black city, why would government care? Governor Jeff Landry comes from plantation owning folk. The governor's mansion in Baton Rouge was built by slaves and is staffed currently by prisoners, by inmates who work as their servants for 3 cents an hour. You can look it up. Louisiana has private prisons. Louisiana has more prisoners than anyone else in the world, any other country in the world. Because the same people that owned plantations, their families were given positions as like, sorry that your slaves got taken away, but you can be police chief, but you can be governor, but you can be this, but you can be that. You can have this power over the new reconstructed South. New Orleans is an interesting entity because we were first a Spanish colony and then a French colony. And there was a process called creolization that happened when people came. They assimilated in a sort of melting pot way. That's why we call New Orleans a gumbo of people, because everybody maintains their own flavor, their own culture, but adds something to the pot. And that has always been the backbone of the city. And Mardi Gras is a special cultural tradition for us that has been sorely commodified. And yes, we are a tourist city, but like when it gets to the point that everyone who talks about the injustices they're suffering in Puerto Rico because of tourism, because in Hawaii because of tourism, and places like this where the locals are being actively harmed, it's the same thing. We don't even know how bad we have it in Louisiana. School systems are abysmal. This is all intentional. This is all by design so that they can push for voucher programs for charter schools for wealthy people's kids. They're like, hey man, your kids should stop going to school if you're poor and just learn a trade. Don't even bother. Don't even bother. You can go into the military, you can sell your body. It's the only way you can ever go to college. It's the only way you can ever afford to go to college. Oh no. Your mom's in the hood, right? How many siblings do you have? Do you ever want them to have any money? No other way than the military. Or you start running drugs because there is no out. This was intentionally done to our city. And because it was so easy to let people drown during Hurricane Katrina, they just let it happen. Orleans Parish Prison, let prisoners drown. And before you say, well, they were murderers, the principle of not evacuating a say you got arrested tomorrow for a crime you didn't commit. Say somebody pinned a murder on you. Well, that wouldn't happen to me. Okay, say it did. Now you're in jail. Now there's a natural disaster coming. You are left and abandoned, shackled in a cell in a city that's below sea level. A city that, why do you live there if it's below sea level? The city was founded in the 1600s and was our ancestors' indigenous land before that. There is so much that people do not and refuse to understand about our culture and our people because we are boisterous, because we are celebratory, because our way of life is a little different, is a little slower, is a little more joie de vivre, is a little more. We never had the Puritan 13 colonies kind of vibe around us. We were a Catholic colony, and the specific sect of Catholicism was a humanist kind of form of Catholicism that erupted kind of ahead of the Enlightenment. Christ died for your sins, so you can party it up. We don't have to be sad. Jesus died, so we don't have to be sad anymore. Let's party. It's a different. Everything is sad. You can't look at anything. You can't lust after anything. You can't enjoy anything. You can't have. There is no balance in that sense. New Orleans is a true city of balance in a lot of ways. We've been tortured. We've been abused and systemically neglected forever. We choose to celebrate life. That's our choice. What kills me is that I see the beauty of it. I know where I come from. People can call us trash, and people can say that, we get what's coming to us for living where we live and this and that and whatever. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me because it's my home. There is nobody speaking up for our people in elected positions in Louisiana government at this point. Anyone who stands up for us is told to fall in line. And it's very, very difficult. The wealth disparity in New Orleans is insane. It is the wealthiest people you've ever seen in your life next to the ghetto, next to the slums. They call it the city that care forgot. Let that sink in for a second. Charity Hospital after Hurricane Katrina, those doctors were making decisions you'd have to make in war. They were abandoning bodies and patients because everything was underwater. I've discussed at length Hurricane Katrina, and I've got videos on that. I'm working on compiling more of the story. I don't want to have to rehash that because I've given a lot of emotional effort to it on TikTok, and I would rather just compile those thoughts and keep that narrative going. But it's this whole, we've been so exoticized, you know what I mean? They're like, the Cajuns are different, the Creoles are different. You're like, are you like pure-blooded Creole, you pure-blooded Cajun? I've heard that before. Weird. We are mixed ethnicity, mixed race people. We are at least a triracial people. French, African, indigenous. Creole is Spanish as well as these things. Again, I'm a historian. There's a lot of history that goes into this, and I'll talk more about it specifically at length. But I just sincerely ask, why? I know it's because we're black and brown and poor. I know that. But why? Why us? It's definitely the oil, right? If we could just get rid of everybody in Louisiana, Mississippi, swamp kind of areas where there's a lot of natural gas and oil, we wouldn't even have to fight wars in the Middle East. Just kidding, we still would, because nothing is ever enough. It is not enough to wring us dry. They have to beat us down just for the sake of it. I've said for years that if social media was around during Hurricane Katrina, things would have gone down very differently. And that's what's going on here. You can see, well, wait, why are they saying this? And why are they opening up the streets so early? Wait, what? I'm tired of everything. I'm sick of the fact that my grandparents have lost their home multiple times due to storms and received no federal assistance or help in any way, and were quite literally made to pay for things out of pocket. FEMA trailers were so toxic, filled with formaldehyde, asbestos, all kinds of things. I don't know how many years my grandparents lived in one. They raised me with my parents. I don't know how many carcinogens I was exposed to unnecessarily because I had to live in a FEMA trailer for a while as a child. Our public high school, which was still undergoing a desegregation case in 2012 when I was a sophomore, because our school was 90% black, and they were like, well, we gotta start moving some stuff around. So not only are they doing that, we didn't have enough room in classrooms sometimes, so overflow classes would be taught in trailers that were FEMA trailers, that were left over, that were government subsidies, that were they're too toxic to be put in a landfill. So let's put poor children to learn in there. It was not only classes, though. There was a couple times I went to in-school suspension, and that was in a FEMA trailer, too. By the way, I went to in-school suspension because I forgot my belt with my school uniform. So I was taken out of class for a full day because I forgot my belt with my school uniform. I was wearing khaki pants and a polo shirt. We're not given any resources. We don't know what resources we're missing. There are people who talk about their school experience and their growing up experience as fully normal middle class people, and to me, it sounds like the pinnacle of wealth. And I'm grown now. I've lived several places. I have worked among the stupid wealthy, the embarrassingly wealthy, like freak old money wealthy. I was working as a bartender in the Hamptons when Hurricane Ida hit and took my parents' house. I was not able to get in touch with anyone for 48 hours. I did not know if any of my family, loved ones, or friends were living or dead. I look up at the TV, they're playing the Weather Channel. Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel is standing on my block, 4 houses down from my parents, in front of my preschool. And there is the most carnage and destruction you'll ever see. And I start crying. And there's an elderly couple across the bar from me, and they're like, what's wrong? I explain. And she looks at me she says, can your parents not go to their summer house? Like when Sandy hit, we got an inch of water in the unfinished basement. His lawnmower got messed up and he was really upset. Can they do that? Can they go somewhere else? There are people who went back to work on Bourbon Street, not even 12 hours after the attack, because they were forced to. There's no universe where this is okay. I have seen this my whole life. I was born into this. Swamp bred, baby. I know what it is to be treated like trash, to be called trash to my face for where I'm from, for what I'm mixed with, from what I do, from what, oh, you're in Louisiana and your people own a bar? I bet you guys are crazy. Things that a normal person would be like, cool, have a nice day. There's always got to be, my hope is that someone with enough power gives a fuck about us enough to intervene, because the locals are devastated. We're not well. This is the dam that's broken, forgive my pun, years after Katrina. We never got to grieve Katrina. We never got assistance to rebuild. They rebuilt the Garden District and the French Quarter, which are tourist areas, which are wealthy white areas. Everything else was left to our own devices. Do y'all understand? Do you know what it's like to be in 3rd grade and to think in your home with the wind from a hurricane sounds like women screaming. It sounds like piercing, shrieking, screaming. And that's just the wind. That's not sheet metal ripped up and plywood from houses being ripped up and thrown and smashed through windows. That's not livestock being picked up and thrown, but everyone will tell you that the levees were intentionally blown during Katrina to spare the wealthy neighborhoods and flood the low-income neighborhoods. I have created what I call the Katrina database. It is 50,000 plus individual resources about Hurricane Katrina and its aftermath, its political effects, its socioeconomic effects, its global climate effects, everything, anecdotal evidence, child psychology, human trafficking, everything. You don't know how much goes into this. If y'all have ever cared about anything I have said, make sure people know this. I don't talk for my health. If I did, I'd be one healthy. Pay attention to the people in your community. Pay attention to locals and what they're saying and how it's affecting us. Not even just locals in Louisiana, just people who are going through similar injustices. I don't know how to tell you to think about other people and care about other people. I don't know if anything I've ever said makes a difference, but it's not in vain, because I'm saying a lot of things that my kinfolk and my people from back home have not had the words to say because it is so painful. I'm crazy. I'll scream forever. I don't care. I don't care if people think I'm a crazy on the internet. You wear it with pride. But I would rather be so obnoxious that you could never forget the shit I'm talking about than to be passive about it anymore. Be aware. Be receptive. Listen to the people. Listen to what people have to say who are there and live it day in and day out. I see how shit could be better. We see how shit could be better. And we can't do it by ourselves. We're not resilient. Stop. Stop. We've had to be resilient. We are not, we're not having fun. We are abused in every which way, and we're not taking it silently. So I would like all of you to know that we are not taking it silently. This is serious. I care. I don't care if no one else cares. I care.